Hey guys, it's Ghost Queen. Hope everybody's doing well. It's June 5th. It's the night of the Watchers. How apropos. If you can't appreciate the humor that the universe has, then you're not paying attention because there's a lot of humor there. And I see it all the time within my own life and synchronicity and things like that. The universe has a sense of humor, and it's pretty funny if you can learn how to appreciate it and how to recognize it. So, I want to talk about a few things tonight, and I'm going to touch upon a couple of subjects that I'm going to talk about in more depth, at more length, at another time. But things that I notice and things that are interesting to me. So I picked up a little set at the store the other day. Well, it's probably a couple weeks ago now. At a bookstore. I just happened to find this, and it's called The Voodoo Vengeance Book and Kit. You Are a Vengeful God. You can almost taste how fun this is going to be, can't you? Yes, I am, and yes, I can. So I picked this up just because I thought it was so adorable. The little voodoo doll is just so tiny and so cute. Obviously, this is mass produced, but still just kind of adorable. It comes with a little foam block with 4 little pearl-headed pins and a little book with little spells and incantations to use for every sort of situation. But it is interesting. There are some little interesting nuggets in here along the way, and it tells how to deal with different scenarios and different types of people and different problems and whatnot. And it's cute. It's for the mainstream public. I don't take it super seriously. However, I don't know who the authors are. I didn't research them in any way. Perhaps they are very educated on real voodoo. And if so, that's great. And I haven't even looked at the book at too much length yet. But I do think it is targeted more for the mainstream public as a sort of a jokey, hokey kind of, gimmicky type thing. And that's fine. And that's not to say that the things in there couldn't work. Now, and this is one subject that I am going to talk about more at length at another time. But, even people who sort of are really anti witchcraft, anti magic, think it's evil and bad and the whole thing. The funny thing about that really is that they're practicing magic every day. Every day of your lives, you're practicing some form of magic, and you just don't know it. And I'm going to give you one small example to show you a perfect case scenario. At Thanksgiving, everybody here in the States, unless you're a vegetarian, probably, or, you celebrate, you don't consider yourself American, you probably celebrate Thanksgiving, don't you? And we love to get the wishbone out of the turkey. Well, this is my wishbone from my turkey last Thanksgiving. I still have it here. I have been drying it out. I haven't cleaned it off yet. I still need to do that. It's a little sticky. It's so humid here. But I've been saving my wishbone for a special occasion for Wayne and I to use. Guess what this is? This is a form of divination. This is a form of magic. You're practicing witchcraft. Even you Christians. So, if you start to sort of become more educated, more knowledgeable, more aware, you will see that it's all around us every day. And even speaking, in my opinion, is a form of magic. So be careful. Watch your words. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful with your thoughts. Be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of your words, and be mindful of your actions. It's important. It matters. It's a form of magic. Okay? The things that you can manifest in your life and what you manifest are completely up to you. So, moving right along, since I moved here, I came down here for the first time in February of last year, moved here in March. It's been over a year now. I have fallen in love with Louisiana, with New Orleans, with the state and the people and its culture and all of it. It's very interesting. I've tried to learn a lot about it. The history is amazing, and there's just so much to love about this area. And I just really feel like it's sort of becoming more and more popular, and New Orleans is about to undergo a big boom. So, but it's cool. You have all sorts of interesting things here. You know, a lot of people don't know about king cakes and the little babies you get in king cakes unless you live here and you know, go through Mardi Gras season and that whole thing. There's just so many different, interesting, fun things about living here that I love. So we've picked up some souvenirs along the way. And of course, we are interested in voodoo. And I've already talked about the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, which I love. Definitely recommend that. We have a couple of books here that we've read. The New Orleans Voodoo Handbook by Kanaz Filan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. The Voodoo and Hoodoo book by Jim Haskins. I don't know if they're the best out there. These are just a couple of we've picked up and read to sort of learn some more about the culture. So I had an interesting thing happen in the house that I'm going to mention. These are souvenir cups Wayne and I have picked up when we've been down on Bourbon Street having a cocktail. And I have 3 that I keep over here in the corner. And we had an interesting thing happen the other night. Now, if I sort of come down to a normal sort of height and perspective, you can see that these are very level little shelves. I've had this thing sitting in the corner here for God knows how long, you know, and I keep these souvenir cups on them. And Wayne used to be a drummer, and well, he still is a drummer. He just doesn't have time to drum anymore. But I have a set of his drumsticks in there with the straws. And there was a 3rd cup that used to sit here. These are rocks that painted rocks I found in Rhode Island, the Rhode Island rocks. And I had the pink cup sitting over there. And the other night it was, well, this was it last night? I'm losing track. It was thrown off. I was home alone with just Juju and myself in the house. Juju was in the room sleeping on her dog bed with me. And when we heard it be very aggressively thrown onto the ground, it startled us because in the cup, now I hadn't moved it. I haven't touched it since it happened, but I'm picking it up now. And in the cup, so it was sitting here. So you would think if this tipped over in any way, the rocks would have moved out of position. Something else would have changed. I do think this was a spirit that did this. These are very heavy black drumsticks in this cup. And so they sort of even weigh the cup down. So it's not like a little breath of air is going to knock that off the shelf. And I do think that Wayne's brother Patrick, who passed away, is probably the person, the spirit that did that. He has a habit of doing things like that. It's the first time he's ever done it when it's just been me home and Wayne hasn't been here. So, you know, I was sort of flattered and touched that he made his presence known when it was just me home alone in the house. So work with your spirits. And I guess another thing I want to mention is, you know, don't ever think that you're so fucking smart that you can't take advice from somebody else. You know, a friend of mine actually mentioned to me that perhaps we should put an offering out for Patrick. And that was really good advice. And I'm sort of a little shocked and disappointed in myself that I didn't even think of it. So thank you for that. That really, really was cool of you to say, and you know who you are. Thanks. We should have been doing that already. So yeah, having an altar to your ancestor spirits is something I've talked about in the past, and I will talk about a little bit at more length in the future. Cultural appropriation. You know, this is a big subject, and as I've talked about, I do think, you know, people are really being pitted against each other right now, really being divided in the mainstream public, you know, Republicans, Democrats, you know, race wars and gender wars and, you know, sexuality, identification wars, everything. It's like there's a lot of hate being spread around. I don't like it. I just don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's going to get us anywhere until we can sort of everybody learn to be more accepting and work together. We're just not going to make any progress. But on that note, I myself got into a little sort of, disagreement online. Of course, people just don't behave online as they would in person. And I think that a lot of the manners and polite nature and just basic respect for fellow human beings has gone out the window, along with, our sense of community and neighbors and whatnot. Everything has changed with the way that technology is nowadays. And people can really be really harsh on the internet and forget that there's a human being behind the other end. And I was having I commented on somebody's Facebook post. They had posted something about not wanting their neighborhood to be referred to as the hood. And I made a comment that I kind of thought that was sort of not where we should be focusing. I think that ship has sailed. It's just too much into popular culture at this point, when you've got YouTube and music and rap and whatnot. And of course, I was remonstrated for being not a person of color, and it's not my place to have an opinion. I kind of disagree. I think I'm allowed an opinion as a human being of the world, but I respect her opinion as well. Everybody's allowed their own opinion. So, yeah, I just think that it's a really, you get to the point where you can only fight the tide so much. And eventually you just have to let the tide roll over you. And as far as, some things being seeping into popular culture and the mainstream, as I say, I think that some of those things have just, it's happened, and you just have to accept it. And then where do we go from here? We can't go back in time. We can't change the past. So you have to deal with reality and what's really happening, and decide, like I say, where to go from there. Now, you can see this with everything. I happen to be very drawn to the Greek pantheon myself. Not sure why that is. Don't think I have any Greek blood. Haven't done a DNA test, though, so I don't really know for sure. But I'm drawn to the Greek pantheon. And I go where I'm led. I don't choose these things. I just go where I'm led. But I have had Greek friends in the past, and I've gone to Greek weddings and baby showers and that sort of thing. And one of the things that they will often hand out as a little favor is this round blue glass, what do I want to call it? Talisman. And it's meant to ward off the evil eye. Now, I do have one, but I don't have it here in Louisiana. It's with some of my things in storage in Massachusetts. And I was in CVS today, and I saw these. Now, you can see, essentially, that little blue piece in the middle is exactly what I'm talking about. But they've now just made them some other colors and made it into a decorative little bracelet. These were selling at CVS for $1. Now, this is a Greek symbol of protection to ward off the evil eye, but it's seeped into popular culture. I think in America, you just can't help but have that happen. I mean, that is who we are. We are a country made up of hundreds of different cultures. So, it is what it is. And you can fight it, you can buck it, but you can't change reality. You can only work with it. So, well, maybe you can change reality a little bit, but in different ways. But, when it comes to what the state of affairs are, you just have to recognize what they are and where do we go from here and how do we affect change. So, yeah. And, words, I do think words matter. I think words matter. I think thoughts matter. I think that's a form of magic in itself. You have to be careful what you manifest. But there's just, you gotta affect change where you can really effectively affect change. And I don't know that trying to change, the vocabulary, the slang vocabulary of the entire teenage American culture is possible. But like I say, that's me. So yeah, another thing I picked up was this. I'm going to try and grow a little Venus flytrap. I think those are really cool, and it should be interesting to see if I can grow one. I also picked up some pins here. Well, Wayne ordered these for me for my spell kit. I think I'm only waiting for one more thing to come up, to arrive, and I'm pretty excited to share that with you guys too. That's coming. It's on the way. And last but not least, moon phases. You know, working magic can have better effects at better times depending on the phases of the moon. And you should probably keep track of that. And a good way to do that is just in, you know, some people like to have particular, you know, I've seen people with tarot calendars and all sorts of things. I just have a regular, you know, system here. It's called the Tool system, I think. It's fairly new, and I used to use Filofax before, but I switched to this system. It's working fine for me, and I just make little notations about the state, you know, of the moon for each particular day. I keep it on my calendar. Yeah, that's a good thing to do, so that if you are working some sort of magic, you can try to work with the phases of the moon. Certain magic works better at certain moon phases. So I'll probably talk about that a little bit more in a further video. Sympathetic magic, not just used for revenge, but also used for healing. Working with poppets isn't just for voodoo. It's also used with other forms of, you know, there's folk magic and witchcraft that also use poppets, and it's not just used for revenge. And you can consecrate anything really to also be a sort of poppet to aid you in your magical practice. And, you know, I've heard people say use a doll from your childhood. You could use a stuffed animal from your childhood. There's all different sorts of things you could use. And you can make poppets out of Play-Doh. You know, you could make a physical representation using really anything. It doesn't, if sewing's not your thing, you don't have to do it that way. So we will talk about all these things in a little bit more detail, at a little bit more length in another video. I don't want to burn my little cloth here. I think that's probably about it for today. I'm going to wrap it up with one thing I'm going to leave you with. Speaking of popular culture, I'm a huge fan of movies. I love to see the occult symbology in movies, and just general knowledge that's passed along in movies. It's cool, and I happen to remember movie quotes, and I have one here, and it's from the movie Magnolia. If you've never seen it, check it out. I think it's a really cool movie. Love it. And the quote is, "And the good book says, we may be through with the past, but the past isn't through with us." And on that note, I will leave you. Be kind, be compassionate, be loving, be gentle, be smart, be educated, be generous. But if you have to be bad and you have to be evil, make sure you're really fucking good at it. Good night, guys. Until next time, I bid you adieu.